Hey everyone, JCS Starcraft here with a match between Painuser as the yellow Terran and who is this Mute as the pink Protoss. I've been getting a lot of games where players have been pink now. I think the colors are, well, I don't really remember a lot of these colors in the beta, but it looks like they had some sort of randomizer in the colors now, so players are a lot more colorful. Painuser, a very strong Terran player, very active throughout the beta. I think good friends with HT Starcraft as well. Has also a really good commentator. Has casted a few of the games that HT has played in. And Mute, I actually wasn't able to find that much information about him, but looks like this is a very good match between the two players. I think this was posted by Painuser himself. Looks to be, looks to be just a pause there going on. Looks to be some sort of ladder match or just match between two players that know each other. I'm not entirely sure, but here we go. So should be an interesting battle between the two, and Pain right now I think favors Terran Mech, so we'll see whether or not he goes that route right now too. And Mute, I'm not too sure what he's going to go, throwing his pylon back into the back of his base. Doesn't want anything to get picked off in the front by siege tanks or any sort of push on his front, so going to be protecting his structures right here. Now throwing down the gateway and going off the scouts. So early game looks pretty normal from both users. Pain going to be walling off and getting the racks on 12 and a refinery on 13. So probably going to be going some sort of 1-1-1, getting the racks into the factory, getting some sort of starport, and then moving on from there. Mute meanwhile getting his gateway gas and pretty much normal stuff, although Pain at this point hasn't really scouted, so like sending a scout a little bit later, probably at 17, we'll see whether or not that can give Mute any sort of advantage, knowing where his opponent is too. So here we go with Mute, going to be probably guessing throwing a cyber core. So we might be seeing some sort of multiple gateway push onto Painuser. Painuser meanwhile picking up his second refinery, as Terran Mech always very gas heavy. So something that Terrans need to keep in mind is that you need a good amount of gas. Pain meanwhile, Mute at this point knows where Pain is, so going to try to get a scout, but probably going to be denied of any sort of scouting. Going to be a frustrated little probe, unable to do or see anything. Not sure whether or not he's going to run it in at all, knowing that he's probably going to be walled off, but he's going to try it anyways, because who knows? Who knows what Painuser's up to, and who knows what he's doing. Pain meanwhile scouting the 12 o'clock, sees that he's not there. Now we'll be able to see what's going on. Mute has one zealot out, just at the ramp in case any sort of fishy stuff starts happening. Chrono boosting the, wow, I don't know what he just, I think he didn't chrono boost anything. Maybe that was a misclick by him. But getting his stalkers out as soon as possible. This was chrono boosted. I didn't see anything happen. Looks like the probe either met an untimely death or met a timely death, depending on how you look at it. Pain now throwing down his factory, probably going to get the starport next, and meanwhile Pain meeting his doom, his scouting, so he won't be able to see yet what Mute is up to. He has no idea what kind of units Mute had, but does see the early zealot, not the early zealot, but sees the zealot and stalker, so figures that Mute probably has some sort of gateway and cybernetic score, and probably going to be getting more gateway. No, instead he's going to get a robotics facility. So we'll see which way he goes. Pain meanwhile bunking down, making sure that he has pretty active defense. His opponent could be 4-gating at this point, so he definitely wants to hold off in case that 4-gate comes a knock-in, and down goes the starport. Pain meanwhile getting his tanks up, prepping for maybe some sort of 4-gate rush. Does see that there are 2 stalkers out in the field. Going to get his scouting marine a little harassed right now. And let's see, going back over, looking at the income tab, both players, looks like Mute has been pushing chrono boosting his probes out to get them faster. Doesn't really have that much going on right now. Getting his factory out early and getting that observer in as fast as possible so that he can scout out Painuser. Most of the time, a lot of Terran players don't really get Ravens, so they aren't able to detect those observers, and it's kind of like a free scout, a free map hack for the Protoss player. Although he does throw down the scan right now, probably did see the observer come out. So Looks like, yeah, and responds with a Raven of his own. Does not want this Observer in here. Has that tank now. Looks like he's going to be, yeah, almost has Siege Research. So we're going to be seeing some sort of aggression from Pain. I think Mute ran in there, tried to run up the ramp, but knows that he couldn't really get up there. Meanwhile, Mute going to be taking, feels like the time is right, going to be taking his Expo. Knows that Pain doesn't have a whole lot of units right now, and not too afraid of the push. Has been able to scout. Meanwhile, the Raven about to come out, so going to deny any sort of scouting for Mute. I don't think this Observer knows, but what else? Robotics facility has seen the tank, so throwing down the Immortals. Pretty, well, maybe not necessarily standard play from Mute. He doesn't really, he only has one gateway and one robotics facility, but you know, has done enough scouting to realize what, has a rough sense of what Painuser's army is, which I think right now just consists of 8 Marines, that Raven, and 2 tanks. Pain pushed in right now. Mute should have plenty of time to try to reinforce his units. Meanwhile, has upgraded to the Warp Gate, and now going to throw down the robotics facility. So it looks like he's going to be going a mix of Immortals and Colossus versus Pain's has a few, but definitely has tanks on the field. So I'm kind of questioning his choice to go Colossus at this point. Not sure if he thinks Pain's going to go some sort of massive bio ball, but you know, Pain now throwing down his second factory. Normally when you see the 111, Terrans will add more tech and more tech and more tech, and those Colossus just aren't very strong against a fully teched army. They can wipe out the bio ball, the Marine Marauder ball pretty quickly, but will fall to tanks and all sorts of other good things too. Pain now trying to make sure that he has map control, wants to hold on to this tower as much as he can, throws down his bunker out here, going to relieve any sort of pressure from getting too close to his expansion. Mute, meanwhile, scouting his expansion, sees everything, and is right now just kind of massing his forces and getting his thermal lance to extend everything too. Painuser has a Banshee out, going to try to do some harass right now, but does not have Cloak, and really not going to be able to do too much right now. Probably going to run in here. Mute already having both the Observer and the Stalker ready to counteract this Banshee. So good attempt by Pain to keep some pressure and hopefully try to gain something on supply. Right now, Mute's still ahead in the Harvester count, still pulling ahead in his economy, while Pain throws down his second factory. So we'll see what kind of move Pain can get, but already has 3 Siege tanks on the field. As soon as he gets something around the 7 or 8 mark, he's going to be pretty hard to run in there unless Mute has a ton of Immortals. But looks like he's going to be chrono boosting his Colossus right now, and still not too sure. I think he's seen Pain's army. I mean, there are some Marines here, but a lot of these tanks are gonna chew through those Colossus. So meanwhile, Mute going to be taking his gold expansion, keeping his side of the map, and both players now just kind of massing their army while making sure that they can reinforce their armies fast and just working on the macro game right now too. Though I do have to say that Mute is definitely pulling ahead in his Harvester count and has a pretty significant advantage against Pain right now. Pain able to hold on just a little bit as if he keeps pumping out those mules, but you know, I'd say Mute definitely pulling up ahead right now. And Painuser, I think hasn't really been doing too much scouting right now. Not quite sure what the mentality is at this point, but here he goes. Going to be loading up this Hellion, so looks like we're going to see a 4 Hellion drop, which will allow him to scout his opponent and also fry those probes. Painuser also throwing down some really great some border patrol right here, and also throwing down the sensor tower, which is really great. Throwing down the Hellions. Here they go. And they're going to be frying a ton of these SCVs, although Mute did throw down that cannon earlier, but not going to be able to do too much damage right now. Mute running on his his probes just in time. Pain, even with the upgraded, oh, those Hellions are just going to get fried. So valiant attempt by Pain, but held off pretty well by Mute. Could kind of sense it coming. Had these pylons out here to detect it and just get an early warning on that, and didn't lose almost any harvesters there. So Pain now kind of going to be in some sort of trouble. Needs to catch up in his economy. Still does not know or hasn't scouted that Mute has the gold expo, although there aren't any units mining here, so not necessarily a huge advantage yet. Although still very, very high up on the harvester count. Meanwhile, Pain now approaching that critical mass of siege tanks, so should be able to hold this midsection very well. Has a few Banshees to go try to find if there are any sort of other expansions that Mute might have on the field, and getting his command center up and running, going to be locking down his expansion as well. But as a bit behind right now, even if we look at the army count, we see that Mute is ahead, although part of that army count, part of the